Hi, I'm going to give an overview here of Access databases, and I'm assuming that this is really quite new to you, so I'm going to go in from the very basic stuff. And what I've done is I have got a couple of online videos which I'll jump into because I've chosen the best parts of them. But when you first click the Access icon to run Access for the first time, it'll come up with a choice of a custom web app, which is, it'll actually build an Access database which is entered, the data comes in and out of it via the web, and that's a possibility for the Year 13 assignment we currently have. Blank database, that'll be a desktop. If you see that symbol, anything that you're opening there is a web app. And there is one which I've downloaded, which I'll come to later, which is an option if you search online for templates up here, and if you type in library, you'll get this little guy, and I'll show you a bit through that. But first of all, let's jump into a tutorial about what is an Access database. And this is from Lynda.com, and I've stopped their video just where I want it to be, and you can listen. This is about quite a long one, but it's stopped at a good place.
So what is an Access database? An Access database is not just a place to store your data, it's a tool for creating a custom application that wraps the entire interaction between you, your team, and the data. Access is a collection of tools that allow you to efficiently process data, moving it in and out of the database, maintain the quality of the data and ensure that it remains consistently entered and valid, gain insight into the trends, areas of opportunities, and performance metrics through a series of analytical processes, construct organized and detailed reports to help guide informed decisions, and automate tasks to help prevent processing errors and speed up workflows. Simply put, a well-crafted Access database can give you way more than you put into it. To do all of that, an Access database uses 5 main components. These components are collectively called database objects, and each has a unique role to play in managing your data. The first object is a table. Tables are where the data lives. They provide a structured home organized into fields and records. The next objects are queries.
I'll just pause there. It's worth noting that no database can exist without tables. Theoretically, you could have a database without queries, but it would just be lists of data. So you must have tables. Everything else is built on the table.
Queries are literally questions that you have about the data. Queries scour through your data tables to find the answer to a question, and then return an answer as filtered or calculated list of records that look and function just like a table. Forms provide an interactive framework for your database. They hold buttons for moving from task to task, text entry fields to help you enter data into your tables, and input areas to help you define the parameters for a query or report. Reports gather information from a table or query and then format them for a standardized page layout, ready to be printed, exported, or emailed to colleagues. Finally, macro objects are sets of programmatic instructions that you will create that tell the database how to function when you click on a button or interact with a form or other object. They can automate some fairly complex tasks. It is the interaction of these 5 components that makes a database function. For instance, a form might help you enter data into a table. A query will then filter those records to a specific subset, and then a report will format that subset of records for printing. To create our objects, we'll be using multiple working modes called views. These can be grouped into 2 categories. The standard view is the one you'll use when you are working with your data. Depending on the object, we'll use datasheet, form, report, or print preview views. These will display our objects when we're working with the information contained within the database. The other views are used when creating or modifying the structure of the objects. The design, layout, and SQL views all allow you to define how the database functions. Finally, it's important to understand the relational structure of an Access database. Take a look at the following problematic table of contact phone numbers. In this table, you'll notice that the first and last names are repeated over and over again every time that there is an additional contact phone number. We can structure this data differently, but that introduces a new problem. Now we have lots of blank cells where individuals don't have a contact number of each type. Further, this table won't grow very well. What if we wanted to add a fax number for one individual, or a second office number? We would have to alter the structure of the table to add an additional column to accommodate those types of changes. A relational database solves both problems. Unlike a flat file database, such as an Excel spreadsheet, Access organizes data into multiple tables that connect to each other through common fields called keys. Using the exact same data, we can organize our phone numbers like this, where we have one table that's just about people and another table that's just about phone numbers. By linking the two tables together with a key, in this case an employee ID, we can accommodate growth and prevent inefficiencies in our storage. We can easily add new people or additional types of contact numbers without altering the structure of the tables. We'll expand on all of these concepts throughout this course, and we'll be creating several objects in each of the 5 types, hooking them together to build a relational database that will efficiently store data, return answers to our questions, perform analysis, and generate reports.
Okay, pausing here. One thing to note about database design is that if you want an excellence, one of the criteria is that there should be no duplication of data anywhere. And you saw on the first table they were showing you with James Abbott, James Abbott, James Abbott. That's duplication of data. Here, the duplication is solved by having a key, a primary key, and a what do you call this one? A foreign key in another table. And there's no duplication. So you don't actually have Robert Acosta listed here at all, you just have his employee number. Now if you're going to call that a duplication, it's actually not, because they're both keys and they relate to each other. So that's not duplication, the fact there's a 2 there and a 2 there. What would be duplication is if James Abbott, the name for James Abbott under 1 was also in this table. And the idea is that one method of making sure your database is accurate is by only, thank you, no I don't, is by only having James Abbott written on your database once. So if you had him twice in 2 different tables, there's the possibility that if you wiped James Abbott from one, he would stay on the other. Or you may spell James wrong in one and correct in the other, or Abbott, etc. So always be aware that we're looking to break your data down to small bits to go on tables and use keys to join them. Just before I go, notice that the naming convention for each of these fields, the naming convention is capital for the first word and then capital for the second, and there's no gaps. It is actually possible to use the database with gaps in it, but it's very poor practice, and there have been occasions where whole databases have fallen over because the gaps can tend to confuse the program if very complex things are done, such as macros. So always good practice to just put a first name as one word and that the capital denotes the second of what is normally 2 words but joined. It is also a possibility to put an underscore. Some people don't like having a no gap situation there, and so they go first underscore name. Not many do that. Most database operators are conversant with, I think it's called camel naming, I can't remember, with humps, and I think most are conversant with this way. So this is probably the best way to name your tables. I will escape out of this and flick to the second one I have prepared for you, which should be here. This is a webinar, and it's produced by Office. The last one you were looking at just then is Microsoft Access 2030 Central Training, and that's put out by lynda.com, and you're allowed to, this is 5 hours worth, so this is a pretty good one to look through, and if you've got time, structure it over a few days so that you can take notes about where the part they're talking about is applicable to what you're currently looking for. And so you go through that and make a chapter heading if you want. I don't think they give you one anywhere that I could see. However, if you pay money and join lynda.com for a small fee, they will give you the files that they work on throughout this whole exercise. And if you move this over, you can see that a lot of files they're using on the way through those 5 odd hours. Okay, so the webinar is produced by Microsoft itself, and this is from the Office blog series. I found it by searching for tables. I actually wanted to look at information on the best table design or the best database design. One of the requirements of any student building a database is that they must produce a plan, or a design if you like, of what tables relate to what tables. The 5 aspects of a database that we just looked at previously, those 5 need to be described in your plan. So what are your queries going to do? What are your tables going to do? How are they going to relate to one another? What forms will you use for reporting? Will your queries, by the way, will they be an append query, where you might have a movie, for example, if you're thinking of the Year 13 movie database, where someone brings a movie back, you could actually make that bringing back or taking out a query which appends the information on a table. Yes, the movie's in, no, the movie's out, etc. Macros, you certainly will need macros, which what a macro is I think the guy described it, but in Excel we have looked at macros before, where you can simply record some keystrokes or some mouse moves and some button clicks, and then you can put a shortcut key to that macro. So the shortcut key, Control Shift plus a T or something like that, or M for macro, runs that quick macro, and it's as if you had done all of those steps. And that could be like 100 mouse steps. Pretty unusual to have something like that with clicks, etc. But if you've got an automated function that you want your spreadsheet, or in this case your database, to do, you can record macros. Now, macros are often recorded in Access and VBA language, Visual Basic. There's plenty of places you can look to see how macro commands are structured. So this is to the Office blogs, and I'm going to show you here this particular little part. So these guys are talking about what is a database, and I'll just zoom in slightly so you can see them amazingly. There you go.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the other thing that you need to understand about any Access database, it doesn't matter which kind, this applies to apps and it also applies to desktop databases, is that a database is made up of 5 components or types of components that we just generically refer to as database objects. And those components are tables and queries, forms, reports, and macros. Okay. So tables are, tables are where your data lives. Okay, they're the backbone of your database, and frankly, if you don't have tables, you don't have a database. So, and you can see that in this particular table, these are the 2 books, and in this table, these are the 2 people that I entered. Right. Now, queries are questions that you ask of your data. For example, who has my books checked out? And assets with transactions here is kind of a techno-geek way of saying who has my books checked out. Right. So you can see the 2 books, and if you scroll over, you can see the 2 people who have them checked out. Okay. Now, forms are data entry forms, is what they mean by this. And forms really do 2 things. They make data entry a lot easier and a lot more accurate. And you can tell because you can see this form wants you to enter Dave's first name, or enter a first name in one field and then a last name in another. And they can also make data entry a lot faster as well, because if you're out there in a table, you have to enter something and then you have to tab over or use the arrow keys or tap, and you have to go across like this. But if all you have is a form, then you can just fly right along.
Okay,
and you only enter what's really necessary as well. Now, reports are how you present your data visually. Okay? In Excel, you can just grab a chart or a graph and you can drop it anywhere into that big grid of data. With Access, you have to do that in a report. And this is also where you print.
Okay. So that's a little bit different of a model if you're used to Excel or actually anything, PowerPoint, Word.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this is where you go for visually representing your data. Okay.
Yes. Now, macros are a subject all their own. They're how you automate the database. They're how you make something happen when you click a button. And this is an example of a macro, and you can see it looks kind of long and kind of complex, but please don't be intimidated by this, okay?
It looks scary.
Yeah. But it's something that you start with simple macros, like, say, button clicks, and then you move from there.
Do you have to go right into macros when you first learn
No,
Access?
you don't.
You
No.
can use the other four.
Yes, you can create all sorts of databases that don't use macros, and you'll be fine.
Okay. But it's nice to know about. It can help with automating
Yes.
things, I guess.
Yeah.
I think that does it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's our general intro to Access.
I just wanted to show you the overview of Access training courses offered by the support part of Microsoft Office. And it's the 3-part series overview, so Access Basics 1, 2 and 3. Although they give you a little wee one here, create your first Access 2013 database. That's a fairly quick one, doing a template. What we saw earlier on in this video was this webinar, Intro to Access 2013. It's 15 minutes. I showed you about 5 of it. If you click this, you can watch online. This is for beginners, and it just comes straight up to it, and we'll show you down here an overview of what's contained in the video, and it's quite helpful because they've got each part labeled with how long. So key concepts and terms is 4 minutes 35, and you can scroll through here. When they've got more, you can see whatever's there. So it's quite quick to work your way through, and what I like about this is if you're trying to do a particular skill, Table Designer and Table Design View, and I'm not too familiar with it, you can quickly jump to here and click on that one. It'll pull it up, and then you can jump into it. I did like, by the way, this overview they gave at the very start in section number 1. If I double click that, press play, will it work? My internet is quite slow. Slowly getting to it. So this is using the designer, this Table Designer. Alright, and if I press play, I'd get it, and then I can zoom it in, etc. So my internet is slightly slow.
In the previous session, we saw how to build a table in Datasheet View, and we looked at the data types you assign to the fields in your tables.
So that gives you a preview of what you're looking at. What I wanted to do was to show you in the webinar that we looked at a bit of before, they were showing you a library database. So if you went to here, in fact the very first thing I showed you on this alluded to it, so I'm going to jump back to that. I've called this database 12, and I've just been working on this over a few minutes. And what I did was I opened the template. It's a Microsoft produced template, and the library structure is already set out. And so what I did just for a minute is I thought, well, there's not much difference between the concept of having your own lending library from home, where you've got a bookcase full of books and you're checking out to different people. I wanted to show you how you could take something like this quite easily and inspect how they've done it in order to be able to get this check-in, check-out thing. In other words, there's no harm in seeing how they've done that, and you could actually modify this for DVD check-in, check-out. So I'll show you what I've done. Let's just add a movie here. I believe there's a form they've got for doing it, but I just put this in manually. So let's do it. Message, and that is going to be drop-down box. Now, by the way, if I typed a new one, I'm just going to call this, I don't even know if it is Disney, it's probably not Disney. I'm going to show you that if you type a new one in here, in fact, when the library database comes, it has brackets around category 1, category 2, category 3, and all you do is you think of a new category. I will show you how to do that now, even though I'm not going to choose this. So let us do animations there. What can I think of? So if I said comedy, for example, not that I say just comedy, if I press enter, it'll say, it's not on the list. Do you want to edit the list? Yes, I do. And there it is, comedy. And I can just keep on typing in here. So I could say dark, anything you like. And then save it. It's okay. So I'm just going to show you now that I'm going to choose, not comedy in this case, I'm going to choose animation, right? Checked out too. Now the way they've got this is they have a contact list here, which so far I've put 2 on. So I'll show you how to add. This is very cool because you can add from Outlook. So if you were building this at school, you could just go add from Outlook. It would open Outlook and I'll do it. So here's one for you. So I'll choose Mark. Here we go. Okay. And it might actually come up eventually. I know why it's taking a while. It's taking a while because I do not have my Outlook available offline, and so it's having to go to Kingsway School to get it all. Here I am. So if I type in Mark's name, it'll search through here, and yes, I want Mark Allen. And by the way, I can do multiples here. Here's Marnitz, for example. And if I just go OK, it'll pop them in. So I could actually go through, type in everyone from, everyone I wanted. So I'm just going to pretend that these guys are in there, and I could go in here and I could add stuff, but that's from a form, a lot easier to do later on. Back to my my asset list. I want to check this Ice Age out. By check it out, I don't mean look at it, I mean I want to borrow it. So I'm going to click on this, check it out, and it's got this really cool form here. And I can say due date, whichever I like. There's today's date, there's a due date. So let's say that's a week. If you only wanted to say 3 days of hire because it's a new release, not that it is a new release, I would be 17th, there it is. Checkout condition. Well, this is interesting because DVDs end up scratched. Really, there'd only be 2 categories in here, and it would be okay or unsatisfactory or something like that. Or maybe you could go with all those. I'm just going to say it's in good condition, maybe a couple of little scratches on it. And the person I want to check it out to today is Mark Allen. Here he is. Check it out. Okay. What I've got in, interesting. I've got to save it. I'll tell you why that's happening. So I'm just going to close it. I'll show you what was wrong. When I went over to my contact list, I didn't save it, and I should have saved it. In fact, even if I did here, I could right click and go save. It would do it. And now when I go to my asset list and check out Ice Age, click on Mark Allen, and I'm going to say the 17th, wasn't I? And Mark Allen, come on, mister, I know it's there. Come on, oh, okay. 17 slash, I think I have to do 02 as well. Oh my goodness. I should have just clicked on this little guy here and brought it up. See, it would be so easy. There we are, same thing. Now, checkout condition, I'm going to say it's good, and I'm going to go Mark Allen, go check out. And because I'd saved the other one, Mark Allen is now showing there. And if I go to this borrower lending history, can I save that first? Yes, I will. So, checked out assets. All right. So when I click on to checked out assets, I can see that I didn't do a date, or did I? That would be interesting. I'm not sure why the date is incorrect there, unless that field is just too small. If I go to another view, which is called layout view, I should be able to click, bring this wider. There we are. Double digits. Why was that? Oh, because I'm now in the afternoon. It's dropped off, so from 12 down to 1, and so it was a little wide. That's all that was. Interesting to me that I can see there's an interesting little thing there. No, I don't. I don't know why I have what looks to be a double upper figures there. Anyway. If I click on Mark Allen, I'm in the wrong view here. Click on, I'm now exploring, you guys know as much as I do here. David Lee, okay, it will bring up my contact details, which is very cool, because these are all, and if I click on Gone with the Wind, it will bring up the categories, etc. These are generic categories or generic headings. I think it'd be fairly easy to tailor make this for a DVD database, quite easily indeed. Alright. I am now going to click off that. By the way, you could email a person. I just want to see if this is true. David Lee, and if I click email, I can send an email to David Lee. You could do this with a macro. Hey, David Lee, it's now past the 17th or whatever date that was, and your video is past overdue, blah, 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 and you need to bring it back, etc. Now, I'm not going to wait for that because my offline status is not very good. So here are the 3 parts, part 1, which I just showed you, part 2 and part 3, and part 3 is about queries. There are more advanced seminars available from Microsoft Office, but this is a really good place to start. Okay.